Почитувани го следите неделното интервју на Радио Слободна Европа, гостин е министерот за животна средина и просторно планирање Насер Нуредини. Господине Нуредини, во моментов државата во услови на енергетска криза увезува мазут и јаглен за потребите на домашното производство на струја. Како во ваква ситуација ќе ја спроведувате зелената агенда?
First of all, let's actually talk about the past, where we are today and what we look to do tomorrow. First of all, we need to be very open and transparent about the fact that our country has not invested a lot in energy in the past. So the majority of the electricity we produce in our country is from coal-fired power plants, which means it's from Rekbitola and Rekoslame, which produce approximately 65% of the energy in our country. Unfortunately now, yes, we're on top of that, we're importing coal and we're importing mazut as well for Negotino. The plan was, from the beginning, the idea of the green agenda we're all speaking about is to actually move away, to transition away from conventional methods using fossil fuels. Now, our NDC, the Paris Agreement, states that by 2030, we will decrease the greenhouse gas emissions by 51%. And within that, our strategy is to decommission the coal-fired power plants by 2030. Now, how do we get there? Of course, we have an energy strategy. The question is, how do we apply it, implement the whole strategy? Of course, now with the crisis, this is not just in our country, by the way, let's be very open about this. This is a European energy crisis. The prices are not increasing just in our country, the prices are increasing all over Europe. Now, this is happening because we're very dependent from one source, which is currently Russia. We depend on the gas, we depend on the oil, etc. At the same time that we as a country are planning and we're working, we've actually started some projects investing in renewable energy. When we're speaking about energy, that means solar, wind, etc. Now we're in the final phases as well of the tendering procedure for Chebren, which will be a cornerstone in our energy strategy for the country, for the future.
Аерозагадувањето е долгогодишен проблем. Очекувате ли сега со растот на цените на струјата повеќе луѓе да се вратат на загревање со дрва и со тоа да се зголеми аерозагадувањето во земјава?
First of all, I think the proposal has been made I don't think it's actually finalized, we'll see how it goes, but I heard there might be a step-by-step increase, but for the majority of our citizens, the prices will remain the same. So we don't expect them to move away or actually use some other kind of source of heating. Of course, we have already had it in our country. We've had numerous subsidies, may it be for the inverters, may it be for using pellets or other methods, the heat pumps. At the end of the day, there's still actually a lot of subsidies out there. We want the citizens to use them. So the state gives subsidies of up to 20%. There's also other mechanisms of using credit lines or actually using a loan from a bank, where there's also the GEF gives a 15% or 20% subsidy. We want to stimulate our citizens to move away from using wood or other elements that will actually pollute. I don't think it's actually going to increase, to be honest with you, this year.
Долго време се издвојува јавни пари за субвенционирање на инвертери. Дали беше грешка стимулирањето на користење на струја која ја немаме?
No, I don't think that's the case, not at all. At the same time, of course, the question is, where does the energy come from? What do we use it for? Let's not forget that these inverters are very energy efficient. And as you've probably seen, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've had a decrease in air pollution. So it's showing us that we are moving in the right direction, that the measures we're taking are showing results. Again, unfortunately, there is no overnight solution for air pollution. Because right now, together with the Swedish government, and we're very glad to say that, we have where the University of Stipp has produced a report on where the air pollution comes in the city. So we have scientific data stating that the air pollution in our cities, especially city of Skopje, is over 40% from biomass, which means that it's using wood, pellets eventually, or other elements that actually pollute our air. Then comes fuels, unfortunately, transport, our cars, which unfortunately are very old, and then the industry. So we need to move away from using wood and other such elements in order to solve the issue of air pollution. Hence why the gas project is really important.
Охридскиот регион и Охридското езеро се светско природно и културно наследство, но анализите на Хидробиолошкиот завод покажуваат одредени нивоа на фекалии, особено во летниот период кога е туристичката сезона. Зошто не се преземени доволно мерки за да се спречи ваквиот проблем?
Yes, I think we should all be content and happy with the fact that Ohrid is a UNESCO site. We have to keep it. This is something we've been working on. This is something I went to Paris to discuss with the UNESCO committee. And last year we got a further 2 years extension to review and actually implement their recommendations. When we speak about, unfortunately, the wastewaters entering our lake, we have to be aware of where it's coming from. So, first of all, it might be from buildings which actually are not connected to the collector. And at the same time, we also are aware of the fact that the collector, the main pipe of the wastewater in Ohrid, is unfortunately damaged and is leaking. So there's actually also coming parts of it from there. We are also need to be aware of the fact that the Satiska River, which flows into the Ohrid Lake, needs to be diverted. And we're currently working with the international donors to divert parts of it. So what we need to apply is we actually look at the project. Now, openly, we need to state the fact that the study done by the Japanese, which we're very grateful for, states that the investment necessary for the waste waters in the Ohrid region is approximately between 60 to 70 million euros. This is a very large sum. We need to do this step by step.
Да, граѓаните кои живеат во Охридскиот регион со години плаќаат за колекторскиот систем, а езерото не е заштитено. Зошто се случува тоа?
As I said earlier, the fact that some of the houses are not, unfortunately, connected to the system. I don't know what percentage of them pay the utility bills. I do not want to go into that debate because that is the responsibility of the municipality. However, though, there should be investments into the collector system. I agree with you. At the same time, we as a country, I'm not speaking about central level or local level, we as a country also need to be working together and understand that we will need more funds to invest to repair the damage that already exist.
Исто така и реката Вардар е претворена во депонија во која се слева целата скопска канализација според мерењата на Центарот за јавно здравје. Слична е ситуацијата во Лепенец, во Пчиња. Меѓутоа, зошто во 21 век Скопје е главен град без пречистителна станица?
I agree it is late. However, though, I'd like to inform you and tell you that we are in the final stage of hopefully signing an agreement with whoever is going to win the tender, which is in the final stages. Hopefully by the end of the year we will start building the wastewater treatment plant in Skopje, which is an investment of over 100 million euros. We're financing it through loans from EIB and EBRD. Thankfully, we're going to get a grant from the WBIF fund, which is the European Union, which means that finally this year we will start building a wastewater treatment plant in Skopje to deal with the wastewater in Skopje. It's been a procedure that we've been working on for the last 3 years, and now we're finally in the final stages. And I agree with you, a capital city should not remain without a wastewater treatment plant.
Колку ориентационно временски би траела изградбата на таа пречистителна станица?
I believe the whole process of the construction is being foreseen to take between 3, maximum 4 years.
Започнато е чистењето на линданот во малата депонија во Охис, но од друга страна има 16 индустријски жешки точки во земјава, меѓу нив е и депонијата Југохром која е во близината на изворот Расче. Постои ли ризикот загадување на водата која ја пие цело Скопје?
First of all, yes, I'm very happy and glad that we finally started. After 50 years, we're starting to clean up the small landfill in Охис, but also we need to state that there's a large one next to it as well, so that will need to be cleaned up as well. I'd like to point out that with the change in the law on environment, we finally obliged the state and the private owners of certain land to identify the hotspots. Until now, we didn't actually identify them. We all knew about them, but officially they did not exist. With the change of the law, now we're obliging the state to identify them and to start working on rehabilitation plans for these sites. That means the cleanup. Jegochrom or Jegonovce is a historic hotspot that was created by a state-owned company from 40, 50 years ago, unfortunately. Is there a risk? There is a risk. And unfortunately, that if we don't manage it properly, and some thing else happens, that it could actually simmer through into the underground waters. However, though, there's the barrier. Let's not forget that we have the Vardar there as well. So we're taking all the precautions necessary. We're constantly pumping out the water, the contaminated waters. We are treating them and releasing it as industrial water. However, with the new law, we will oblige us as a state to create a rehabilitation plan and finally start looking for ways and for funds to clean up that site, which could be, as I said, a risk to the citizens of Skopje.
Малку да се вратиме на климатските промени. Како ќе биде обезбедена праведна и инклузивна енергетска транзиција со оглед на тоа дека Македонија е меѓу земјите која е зависна од јаглен?
Again, as I said, we need to slowly transition away from it. So we need to diversify our energy mix. First of all, as you're very well aware, we're investing into the LNG port in Alexandroupolis. Why are we doing that? So we can actually secure quantities of gas, natural gas for ourselves. Second of all, it means we're going to start distributing gas into the cities and the rural areas, but primarily we want to start getting the industry connected to that, so that they use less electricity produced by, or energy produced by coal. Second of all, what we're doing is actually we're getting ESM, the state-owned company, to invest in renewable energy, such as was the first project which started a few weeks ago. It's 10 megawatt, it's small, we know, but it's a start. The next one, which is getting approved right now by the Parliament, will be a 30 megawatt project by ESM again. So we're not only investing as a state, at the same time we're supporting the private sector to move into renewable energy. It has a good return, if done appropriately. At the same time, we want to stimulate these citizens to invest into renewable energy such as solar. As you've probably heard, recently the Ministry of Economy passed in government the change of regulation. That means we as citizens can put up to 6 kilowatts of photovoltaic panels on our rooftops, and we can sell it into the network, should we not need it ourselves.
Дали меѓу мерките и ќе бидат и воведување на даноци на емисиите на јаглерод диоксид за компаниите?
This is something that actually is a very good question, I must say, because last week I was in Brussels. And they are looking, the EU is looking to introduce the carbon border activation and also activism methodology, which means they will start charging our economy should products be imported into the EU which use fossil fuels, which actually generate CO2 emissions. Now, before we do that, we cannot let our country pay into the EU. We need to think about it. And we are currently looking at where I've got the finalized law on climate change. And in the law on climate change, we are looking to introduce carbon pricing, albeit at a very low price and gradually increasing year by year. The idea is not to charge the private sector, but to stimulate the private sector to move away from using fossil fuels. Because if we don't, the EU will in a few years' time. So before we start paying to the EU, we're going to start making our private sector slowly pay to the state. The state will invest in renewable energy so that the private sector can have renewable energy rather than using coal, energy from coal. So yes, that it will be coming. But before we do that, of course, I want to sit down with the private sector. We want to explain it to them because we don't want this to be a shock. However, though, if we don't start introducing it now and gradually increasing it, it will be a shock because the EU will impose it on us.
Господине Нуредини, ви благодарам за интервјуто.
И јас ви благодарам за вашето време.
Почитувани го следевте неделното интервју на Радио Слободна Европа. До гледање.